Hey, what's poppin'? What's good? And welcome to another episode of No Cookie Cutter Christian Podcast. And yeah, I'm so excited. Finally, you get to see Equally Yoked Christian game cards. So listen, I've been working on this for a really long time. I've had this in my back pocket, but if y'all been watching this whole podcast, life has been lifing. So I couldn't wait to put this out the minute that I got a chance. And so I know that y'all saw earlier this week that I released it. I'm so excited about it. And today I wanted to dive right into it. Let's talk about it. Where did the concept come from? You're going to get to see some of the cards today. We're going to talk through some of those and all of the things. Okay, so firstly, why equally yoked? Well, God gave me this analogy or the name for the cards from the gate. And mind you, these cards came out of me just I had a notes list and I was just keeping like random questions that I wanted to ask somebody that I was dating to see if we would be equally yoked, right? I found that sometimes in dating, I felt like I asked certain questions too late in the game and they were make or break questions. And then it's just like all this time wasted. And that one question just kind of broke everything. And I think sometimes when you are so enthralled with somebody, you're getting to know them, you're so infatuated with them. Um, you don't sometimes ask the right question. A lot of times, especially in my 20s, things went off of vibes. Okay. Um, and I always wanted to make sure that somebody knew God or had a relationship with God, but I didn't know to ask the questions beyond that to see like where somebody was really at. And so I feel like these cards came with a lot of intention, a lot of research on each child for me and some of the people that I saw whether they were dating, whether they were married. And I was like, if this question was asked earlier, you would have found out this, that, and the third. And so that's the idea that I made the cards in. And so I pretty much took all the questions in my notes list and made them into these cards. I couldn't even take credit for it because one, it was all God. Two, my sister was just like, you should make these into game cards, like, for people, for Christian singles. And I was just like, period. So these card games are for Christian singles, those who are dating, those who are married, those who are engaged. And I say married because sometimes in the courting phase, you forget to ask certain things. You don't know everything about a person. And I don't think that you ever will, but I do feel like it's important to just kind of if you feel like you got married and there were just some things that came out later on that you was just like, you know, these questions are for you so that you can get aligned if you're not already aligned. And even if you're aligned, it's something fun to figure out what else you may not know about your partner. So why equally yoked? So the Bible talks about do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, right? And we know that a yoke is this kind of wooden back in the day apparatus that they would put on two oxen so that they would be able to plow, right? And so the whole point of it is that they will go in the same direction, they will be productive, and they will get the job done, right? I think that everybody has their calling in God. Everybody has who God needs them to be and what God needs them to do in the earth. Everybody has a purpose, right? And I think that equally yoked helps you understand if somebody is aligned with you enough to be able to be productive in a relationship and in a marriage, right? And so I think that it's important to know like if you're spiritually aligned with somebody because everybody believes different. Every Christian is not created equal. There are Christians who do God and a little bit of sage, God and a little bit of tarot cards, God, and like it's a lot of things out here. Um, and it's not as um everybody who say God doesn't mean the same thing. And while I don't feel like equally yoked means that you have to be twins with somebody in your spiritual alignment, I do believe that it means that you have similar core beliefs. You have and whether it's different degrees, right? Because somebody can be a newer believer than the other person. Somebody could be more, you know, um biblically literate than the other person. However, if they both understand that, okay, this is the Bible, this is the Word of God, and this is the foundation, that's a great start, So things like that. You may not be like twins, you may not be every single thing you guys align on perfectly, But as long as the core beliefs are there and the Bible is your ultimate authority, I think you're going to be fine. So these are the cards. And so if you go on my social media page, I'm sure it's all over there by now, but this is what the front looks like. This is what the back looks like. Okay. And shout out to Clay Design. She's the one who I found on social media and she was able to design these for me. And I was really excited about it because she took everything that was in my mind and made it into these cards. So let's dive in. Okay, so first we have categories. It starts off with phases 1 through 4, and it pretty much goes from like just getting to know somebody to you being engaged or being married. Like these are questions that you want to ask like later on in a relationship because they're more serious, they're more intimate, and all the things, right? I find that because while I've been dating, I've been using these cards, child. And let me tell you something. If one thing about it, it's gonna sniff out. It's gonna sniff out what needs to be known, okay? But I found that people usually just want to get to the phase 4 and see like the spicy quote unquote questions, and see what that's all about. If you buy these cards, of course you can look at all the questions, but I would advise you not to rush through the fourth part with somebody that you just are getting to know. I feel like the questions are very personal, but that's my advice, child. Um, and then it says, before using these cards, ask yourself, okay? So the first thing is ask yourself, what has God told me about who I am in his kingdom? What is my purpose? What has God told me about my spouse? What is hindering me from being married? What are my values? I think these are so important because sometimes you meet people and the standards go down a little bit because you like the person. You might meet somebody, you like them, and you have these certain values about yourself, but then you find yourself giving discounts. You find yourself saying, well, mm, that's okay if they're a smoker. Like, they only smoke cigarettes, they don't smoke weed, it's fine when you don't like smoking at all. You know what I mean? And I know that people were previously saying, like, oh, you should rip up your list. You shouldn't have a list. Baby, I like the list. Okay. Because at the end of the day, when you're grown, you know what's negotiable and not negotiable. And negotiable being the things that, like, it's a preference more than it is a value, you know? So I like tall, dark, and handsome. That's a preference. If he is a little bit shorter, but he has the great character that I'm looking at, and he's responsible and just all the things, he's responsible, accountable, all the things, but he's a little shorter, let's forget about the tall. Okay, that's a preference, but you want to make sure that your standards are staying where they need to stay. So I say keep the list because the list helps you remember your standards when you get a little dumb from looking at somebody for too long. Okay, so we're going phase one, and the cards, first couple of cards are the same back and front. So okay, so one of the things that I love is that these all the phases, each phase has a different backside to it. So the first phase is this. And the question is, do you want kids? If so, how many? So phase one is just kind of trying to figure out if you're even compatible with this person, if you like this person, just in general. Okay, just general questions. What's your salvation story? I think that that's a great question. The people that are actually following God for real, they have a salvation story of when the trajectory changed from just believing that Jesus is, believing that Christ is who he says he is, to actually making him your Lord and Savior. Those are two different things, okay? So I really like this question. I always feel like this is a really great point to kind of get deep with people, and see what actually brought them to Christ. Um, what do you repeatedly binge watch? I like that. And I feel like these questions are important because it's kind of like, can I sit on the couch with you on a Sunday after church and actually kind of be into the same things? Now, we live in a society where people got multiple TVs in their house. It's not like back in the day where you got one TV or whatever the case is. You can watch different things. So, of course, this can be negotiable, right? But you're just trying to see if we vibe. Do we gel? Do we like some of the same things? Like, can we actually be in a house together and be okay? What's your longest relationship? And I think these are conversation starters because you ask these questions and then you get to ask follow-up questions. You get what I'm saying? Like, here's my advice on using these cards. Blame the cards. Feel free to blame me, blame the cards. Okay. If it comes up and you see how somebody starts acting weird about something that they have to answer, you make a mental note. But this is to get you to the spot of like understanding who somebody is, their values, what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like, all of the things. Okay. So what's your longest relationship? I like that because my follow-up question would be like, okay, and so why did you guys break up? Like, that question is probably in here somewhere too. What's your love language? What's your guilty pleasure? Because for me personally, if you say your guilty pleasure is clubbing, yeah, no, no, thank you. What's your idea of intimacy? You want to know if all he or she feels is intimacy is when you laying down, baby. That's a problem. That is a problem. And I said that's a problem because you're gonna get married as a woman, right? You get married, you have a baby, you're not gonna be able to have sex for 6 weeks. You want to be able to know, like, okay, can this man be okay while I have a child hanging off of my body and I cannot give you anything? My sister likes to say service you. And it also has scenarios as well. It says you're in the house with your spouse. What's your favorite thing to do? So it has like scenarios for each of them. What do you do for fun? So this is just like the beginning questions. We're just trying to get to know each other, trying to see if we can actually gel. Okay. So now we're on to phase two. Okay. All right. So, um, starting off strong, do you have friends of the opposite sex and what are the boundaries you set for them and yourselves? Okay, let me tell you something. This one is going to get them every time. And I like when men have friends of the opposite sex in certain scenarios, meaning like when you are able to have a woman in your life who can kind of be a sounding board, who can tell you when you're wrong, hold you accountable, just give you a woman's perspective, sure. Um, but in the past, I've had women who overplayed their position as a friend. You get what I'm saying? And my biggest thing or pet peeve in like, oh, that's my brother, that's my sister. My biggest pet peeve is this. I don't believe that you should have friends who you want to sleep with. If you have a friend that you are attracted to them in a way in which you are waiting for them to give you an opportunity, you are waiting for them to let their guard down, you are waiting until they're vulnerable enough so that you can have a chance with them, that's not your friend. Okay, and this is for men and women. So I find it really important to just if you want to mess with somebody, I feel like that should not be your friend. And so your friends need to be your actual friends. Like you don't have a desire for them. You just like that's your homie for real. And thankfully, all my friends are. Um, let's see. This question for me is important. How tidy are you? Are you OCD clean? Are you tidy? Are you slightly messy? Is it organized chaos or you hate cleaning? I need to know. Okay. And I love the back of these cards. Um, if someone does something to offend you, how do you handle it? I love that because I need to know, like, you are gonna get offended with your spouse. I need to know, how do you handle it? How do you handle when somebody pisses you off? How do you handle when somebody does something that you don't like? And while people are gonna answer quote unquote correctly, um, look for patterns between their behaviors and the things that they're saying. And this is really not like a gotcha kind of card game. This is really just like flat out trying to get to know somebody to see if they work for you or not, because it's going to happen where either it will work or it won't, and the sooner you know, the better. Okay. So phase two is just kind of like, you starting to really like somebody, you're past the like, trying to figure out if you're compatible. You're compatible, you like them, you're trying to see, you're trying to get to know them a little bit on a deeper level, right? This question: what's one repeated complaint people you've lived with have? I need to know that. What turns you off? And let's not jump to sexual questions, but This could just be like, for me, hygiene. Bad hygiene turns me off. Little stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? What's your pet peeve? Um, for me, people cutting me off when I speak. Hate that. Because let me finish. Okay. But this is just so you can kind of get to know somebody, knows what make them tick. Okay. Um, when do you pray about it and when do you simply decide? Do you spend time at home with God? If so, what does that look like? So we want to kiki and cackle and haha, but we also want to get to the point. Okay. Um, Scenario: your favorite parent does not get along with the person you're dating. What do you do? And has this happened before? Let me tell you something. Some parents look at their sons like the husband they never had. Some parents look at their daughter like she's too good for everybody. And these are the things that you need to know. Like, what am I walking into? Okay. Um, if you had to pick three things you absolutely needed in a relationship, what would they be? Need to know these things. Okay. So that's phase two. You're just kind of getting a little bit more, what do you call it? A little bit more in depth. You're trying to see where their mind is at with everything. Um, what do you believe your purpose is? I need to know. Because how can two walk together unless they agree? Where are we agreeing to go? Okay. And I feel like these are all light conversations, but also very necessary conversations. Okay. So this is phase two. All right. So we're at phase three. But before I even get there, there was a question in phase two that I wanted to talk about. The question is: do you believe in gender roles? And if so, based on the Bible, what do you believe is a man or woman's job? And I feel like that's really important because sometimes, a lot of the times, people get married and they come into marriage with the idea that she's a Christian. She should know that the woman is supposed to be a Proverbs 31 woman, right? She's waking up early, she's cooking, or whatever the case is. And people say those things in passing, but when it comes down to it, if you work and I work and I cook and I clean and I take care of the kids and you come home and you sit down, for a lot of marriages, that ends up being a problem. Okay. And I just think it's really good to know like people's expectation of you for, when you guys settle down. So yeah, I feel like that's important, the gender roles. So we're at phase three, and check out the back of phase three. Phase three is like we really vibing. We are still getting to know each other, but I'm a little bit more serious now. I'm trying to see, like, you know, just trying to get a little bit more data before I make a final decision. So phase three is for the consequential questions designed for when a relationship is getting serious. Okay. We know we like each other. We are vibing. I'm trying to see, you know, these are the make or break kind of questions. Okay. So let's get into phase three. Who gets to correct you? We start off strong, starting off real strong. Who gets to correct you? Because I need to know if you are accountable. And I find this so big. A lot of the times, men will be dating and they're grown, and so they're making money on their own. They're doing their thing, and they feel like nobody can tell us anything. And for me, that is a dangerous man to be with. I think even a woman who, you're grown, you're accomplished, you got a couple degrees, and now it's just like it's your way or the highway, and nobody gets to tell you anything. Like you can't admit when you're wrong, you don't apologize, you just who gets to correct you? I need to know when you are bugging out. Is there any sort, any level of accountability in your life that I can be like, what we got going on? And sidebar, me personally, in my marriage, I want us to have a couple from the gate that either somebody who has counseled us or either somebody who is a married couple that are older in age than me and my husband, who are able to walk with us through the marriage, walk with us through just life. That way, if I'm bugging out, the wife can be able to call me and be like, your husband said this, what's going on? And if he's bugging out, the man can be like, listen, your wife called me and she said this, that, and the third. What you doing over there? something where somebody else is holding you accountable. And I think that's really important because a lot of people just want to be accountable to God. And because God is not physically in your face day in and day out, I feel like you get to play with that. When you have to be accountable to another man or woman, I feel like you're more, do you know what I mean? Not to say that God is not enough. I do believe that we're called on this earth to walk together, right? Um, Next question. Do you believe in hiring a nanny? I want to know because there are some men. I talked to an African man one time. He was just like, listen, you could work for like another year and then you could be a stay at home mom. I'm like, so, oh, you got my life all planned out. Hello, is you cool? Like, um, and wanted the barefoot, stay at home pregnant, make sure my meals are ready when I come home. And I think that that's great and it works with some people, but that's why you need to ask because these are the things you need to know. Those open up these kind of doors for questions to see, like, okay, these are his expectations. This is what he's looking for. And no shade to the homemakers. I'm here for it. I just feel like, baby, if I'm a stay at home parent or a stay at home wife, um, I can't just be stay at home. I'm gonna be working on 5011 businesses. I'm sorry, like I'm gonna be racking it up. Okay, so what's your relationship like with your mom? Um, how do you plan on being with your kids? So do you plan on changing diapers? Child, y'all know there was a podcast the other day where the man said, I told you I wasn't gonna change diapers, and you thought I was gonna change my mind, and I never did. I never changed that diaper. Okay. You need to know these things. And even as a woman, um, are you going to be doing homework or what does that actually look like? I think a lot of the times we wait until we're in relationship with somebody and then they start, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And you're just like, wait, what? Because it's so normal to you and you can't just expect everybody to think like you. Okay. Um, Let me see. What are some practices we can start during courting to maintain spiritual growth throughout marriage? I think that that's really important because couples need to grow together. And if one is going to, they got a small group, they're doing this, they're doing that, and the other one is just chilling, you're going to grow apart. And so, what are some of your non negotiables? That's important. How do you interpret submission in marriage? Okay. And it has a reference scripture for Ephesians 5. So if anytime um, you guys start to talk about submission, go read that whole chapter. Let's make sure we're being biblical about it, okay? What's the hardest thing you've overcome? What qualities do you believe are essential for a godly relationship based on biblical principles? Baby, this is when we're trying to get deep. We're trying to figure out your core values, like what you really got going on. Um, when do you feel the most loved? I love that. What have you gone through that you vowed that your kids would not? Okay. Last question from this one. How much do you tell your friends about your relationship? Let me tell you something. That's a good question right there. Because some people are very private. They keep everything close to the chest. And other people got 50, 11 friends. They got their five close friends and they're going to call each friend and tell them about you when you made them mad. And that can be problematic. So you want to know, okay, how far does our business go? Okay. Which I think is important. All right. So now we get into these. And there's only a couple of these, right? Phase 4, and you see the guy on his knee. This means we're serious, we are engaged, we're about to get married, we are married, past the engagement phase, essentially. So I'm only gonna do a couple of these. How do you plan on liking your spouse for years and keeping it spicy in the bedroom? Let me tell you something. I think that, especially, how do I put this? I feel like in the Christian community, sometimes marriage can just be a thing to get over, a thing to accomplish. It's just part of the walk. I don't feel like God has called me to be um, celibate or to be unmarried for the rest of my life. So let me just get married. And now sex is a thing that just comes with that. Baby, I want my marital sex life to be blessed. You hear me? Blessed. Okay. So I feel like it's really important. I'm trying to figure out like what do you plan on doing? And I think it's really important as well to see like what um what are some kind of sexual boundaries as far as this person had, because the truth is a lot of the times people were doing stuff in their past and now they come to their new relationship with their wife and they're bringing everything that they've been through. I think this question is really important because some people come to a space in marriage with their wife, but they've been doing things with other people, their husband or wife, right? And they've been doing things with other people for a long time, and they're into some stuff, and you're gonna need to know, like, okay, what kind of stuff are you into? Is this biblical? Can we actually work with that? Can we, or are we just not doing that? Do you need to seek help? I think that's important. Um, Scenario: you're married and you have 10K in a joint account. A business opportunity presents itself and you believe it's a good investment. Your spouse does not. What do you do? I like this question a lot. And a friend of mine and I was talking about that the other day. Like, okay, if you got money, I got money, we both working. Like, if I spend $10,000 here, like, you shouldn't have a problem. And I'm like, excuse me. Um, Me personally, I feel like big purchases should be talked about. Um, Let me see. Are you willing to share your STD results on paper? You're gonna need to know this. I listen, either paper, seeing the my chart, like going online, whatever it takes. Baby, you have to know. Have you ever been attracted to the same sex? Some people that's not gonna fly, and you're gonna have to know. What are some generational curses in your family line? Baby, at this point, you're gonna have to know what you're dealing with. And I think sometimes people underestimate that, like the things that your family has gone through or things that you have seen repeated throughout the course of your family line. Um, I need to know what I'm gonna have to fight against. I need to know what I'm gonna have to pray against. I need to know what I'm gonna have to look out for with my children, whatever the case is. So I think that those are really important questions to ask. But that's all I'm gonna share with y'all from this. Um, Y'all, Equally Yoked is now available for pre order. It is on abidemultimedia.com and it's going to be in the description box. Listen, go ahead and pre order it. I'm going to tell y'all right now, production and everything is going to take a good 2 to 3 months. I'm telling you this now. So make sure that you are able to commit to just waiting for them for a second, okay? Because I want to make sure that I am ordering, the amount that I need. Um, this has been a labor of love. I think that it's going to really help you guys throughout your dating journey, even throughout like being engaged and being married and just becoming more aligned. And I cannot wait to hear the testimonies when you guys receive these cards. I cannot wait for you guys to go on dates and actually use these cards. And I'm telling you right now, me personally, there were some, there were instances where the first interaction we're using these cards and I'm just like, yeah, no, it's not gonna work. And then there were times when I was just like, okay, I'm not even gonna use these cards because Lord, I already know it's a no. And I know I gotta get away from this man, so help me. Okay. I'm being real with y'all. So I think that these are gonna really help you make a really good decision in marriage. This does not guarantee a great marriage, but I do feel like it's a great start in order to be equally yoked. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys in advance for selling these cards out, for buying them down. I appreciate it. And I cannot wait to hear from you guys. Okay. Leave me a comment. Tell me what y'all think. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Bye.